And if you're, one of those people who has nice guy syndrome and you're kind of walking on eggshells around your home and then trying to continuously keep your partner happy and not, upset them, well, you're just going to live in this little bubble. And that little bubble is going to be living hell, because if you're always walking on eggshells, you cannot fully express who you are. Being an ultra nice guy is a syndrome. It is sweeping modern Western society, and it's a problem. In this podcast, I'll attempt to share my experience with being a nice guy and give you some insightful tips on how you can reduce your Mr. Nice Guy syndrome. The essence of this podcast is based upon the work of Robert Glover, who is an author of the book Mr. Nice Guy, or I believe it's actually called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And it really speaks to anyone who's in the mythopoetic or modern day masculine or men's work. This quality of being an ultra nice guy is something that is debilitating. It is fraudulent, it is inauthentic, and it is likely not getting the man what he wants. So this Mr. Nice Guy syndrome is something that can apply to anyone in varying different degrees. But the essence of it is, Mr. Nice Guy is the archetype of someone who is obsessed with keeping other people happy. He believes that being a nice guy is the most important thing in the world. He believes that he really deserves happiness, yet can't quite experience it fully. He puts other people's needs in front of his own, and likely has some degree of trouble in his sex life. So the Mr. Nice Guy, where does this come from? Why is it there? And how do we work with the Mr. Nice Guy syndrome? Well, it's there firstly because of the same reason that most of our patterns in life are there, and it's oftentimes from childhood, from the way that we were raised, the way that we learn to understand and observe the world. And we, through observing the world, start to understand what we perceive our role in the world is. So back in the war, the World War times, the 20s and 30s, there were most of the men going off to war, meaning anyone who was a young man at that time was likely raised by their mother for the most part, and grew up in a very feminine ruled household. And what happened was they missed the lessons and the teachings of the masculine figure in the home, the male. And what has happened is that has been passed on and down through the generations. So if you were raised by primarily your mom, whether this was, from the war, if you're a little bit older, or if you're even more modern, often what happened was because our parents didn't have the influence of the masculine figure, they then passed that down to their next kids and were likely emotionally unavailable in some way, and that led us to be more nurtured by the mother. And if that's the case, it may be that being a nice and good person feels like the most important thing in the world. And if that's the case, I hate to break it to you, but that can be important, but it's not the most important. And it certainly will not get you to be more liked to be more loved, to get more sex, to feel more happy, or to be more fulfilled in your relationship. Being a nice guy is a people-pleasing quality and tendency. And it has this characteristic of wanting to always be there for other people, take care of other people's needs, make sure other people are happy, including your intimate partner, including, other people in your life. And the benefit of that is, you have the perception that you're keeping everyone else happy. You have the perception that you're doing good in the world. You have the perception that you are this nice guy. But the thing is that that's always a moving target, and the feeling of being happy feels fleeting in that, because the truth is you can't keep everyone happy all of the time. And so what ends up happening is your being becomes dominated by caretaking, and you get to experience the responsibility of taking on other people's emotions, other people's problems, other people's life. And in the name of not rocking the boat with your partner, you kind of keep the peace. But the downside to that is that you lose polarity, you lose sexual attraction from your partner often, you lose your own groundedness and stability and headstrongness in your decision. You start to doubt yourself. You are constantly seeking for approval and for, the smiles and appreciation of other people. And so the practice in this is to rewrite some of these nice guy patterns. And what that means is oftentimes rocking the boat a little bit. So for me, in my experience, I am a nice guy. I have nice guy syndrome and probably will for the rest of my life to some degree. And what is important for me to recognize is when I'm taking care of others more than taking care of myself. And not just basic needs, not just, food, water, shelter, and love, but also on a much more subtle level, emotionally, energetically, spiritually. Am I taking care of myself and putting my emotions first, my business and my priorities first? And by doing that, I actually start to create more masculine energy. And what I mean by that is I create more integrity because I do what I say I'll do. I stick to my word. I am much more grounded in my own being. If I'm going one direction, I'm not distracted by, keeping other people happy, or if this throws my partner off in this direction, I'm staying focused on one thing in one direction. And I'm doing that because that's what's in highest alignment for me. And, when my feminine partner sees that, it creates actually attraction, because it creates stability in the groundedness and in the integrity in doing what I'll say I'll do. Now, it could come at the fear of rocking the boat a little bit. And if you're, one of those people who has nice guy syndrome and you're kind of walking on eggshells around your home and then trying to continuously keep your partner happy and not, upset them, well, you're just going to live in this little bubble. And that little bubble is going to be living hell, because if you're always walking on eggshells, you cannot fully express who you are. And see, the thing with nice guy syndrome is we often think that if we alter who we are, what we do, and who we please, we'll be more happy, have more sex, and create more sustainable, happy relationships. It's not true. Actually, the way that we are liked, loved, respected, and get more sex is by us being more of who we really are, of us being more us, speaking to our own truth, being able to say, I know you don't like this, and I'm doing this anyway, or I know you don't like this, and this is the direction that I'm going. You're going to have to work with me on that, or you're going to have to work around me on that. And just being steadfast in your approach allows for you to become more of who you really are. And that's really the goal here. It's really the goal here. Now, becoming more of who you really are and, working with nice guy syndrome can be a big task. So I highly recommend either checking out a men's group, a group that is actually actively practicing masculinity, practicing, encouraging you to speak to your truth, encouraging you to not be dominated by your feminine partner, encouraging you to take the right steps in the direction of, your soul's path, regardless of, if it makes someone happy or unhappy. Being in a group to talk about this shit is very, very helpful. The second thing that I would recommend is that you pick up the book, No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover. Amazing. He goes much more in depth into all of this stuff. Fantastic resource. The essence of all of this is that we can't make ourselves happy and get what we want by just keeping everyone else happy. We need to honor ourselves. We need to honor what it is that we truly want, truly feel, and stay steadfast in that approach. There's a great saying for the masculine, and it's, he should know where he's going and who's coming with him, in that order. He knows the direction he's going and who's along for the ride, not who's along for the ride and this is where we're going, or where are we going, right? He wants to have direction, and that direction is sometimes a different direction than other people. That's okay. That is okay. So consider the direction of your life. Consider the direction that you would like to go, the direction that is in the highest alignment for you, meaning what brings you the most joy and fulfillment, and what is it that is accessible, and what is it that the world needs. How can you move yourself in that direction? And then invite others along for the ride with you. And if some people aren't ready for the ride, that's okay. If someone is married, if you're in an intimate relationship, and your partner is, the one who's dominating, if you're the Mr. Nice Guy, and your feminine partner is dominating you, well, likely she's more in her masculine. So a caution that as you go through this process, there is a change that happens, right? And I think that this is a wonderful thing, to embrace change in our relationships. This is one of the first rules that I always make in the Embodied Relationship Council, is when we're going over our agreements for the beginning of the program, I say one of the agreements is that we all have to be open to change, because we're all going to change through the 6-week process that I take people through. But we're all going to change in life as well if we're open to change. And I think that that's beautiful and wonderful, and we should embrace that as opposed to be scared by it. Now, with saying that, change can be difficult. The way that our nervous system, our brain is set up, we like familiarity. So when we view change in our partner, it can rock the boat a little bit. So just knowing that if you're wanting to take on some of these new ways of being, no more Mr. Nice Guy, no more people pleasing, naming what you want to do, what you want your partner to do, naming what it is that you are not willing to do anymore. And speaking to that can be a big change that may require some sort of delicacy or some sort of, rather, communication. Just letting your partner know, hey, I've noticed that I'm in this place of people pleasing, and I likely have been for a long, long time. I'm taking on pleasing people less. And as a result of that, I'm going to start to speak to my own truth and set my own boundaries in this new way. Just so you know, that's your heads up. Next time I, tell you that I'm doing something my way instead of the way that it's always been done, it doesn't catch you so far off guard. So then you are actually in this place of being able to decide for yourself what is possible for yourself and what it is that you want for yourself. And the beautiful thing, to summarize all of this, is you can have anything that you want. It's almost always other people's opinion of you that stops you from getting that thing that you want. So if you can stay steadfast in yourself, in your ability to choose the direction that you want your life to go, you can have anything and everything you've ever wanted in life. But you've got to choose to take that direction and stick with it, regardless of what other people think of you. Thanks so much for being here. If you found a certain word, phrase, or a sentence, or a topic in this podcast that stood out for you, leave a comment in the section below on YouTube. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss future episodes. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time. Hello, you beautiful souls. Thank you for listening to the Embodied Relationship Podcast with Baready Mac. I want to introduce to you a program for those of you who are in relationship, who are potentially married or just in a longer term relationship and might be feeling stuck or uncertain or simply craving more intimacy in your long-term relationship. The program that I would love to introduce to you is my signature program, which is the Embodied Relationship Council. And this is a journey where you get to embark on opening the heart and exploring the power of mindfulness, emotional healing, as well as the science of lasting connection. And it's not just about the spark, it's about creating conscious love that evolves over time and actually thrives with more time together. And so this is a space for a conversation for you and your partner to come together and to experience what it's like to grow together in love and understand the warm, loving embrace of each other's souls. Through the joys, through the challenges, we learn how to overcome all of this through conscious love. So if you're craving a love that really feels like home, a connection that nourishes your heart, I implore you to check out Embodied Relationship Council, and let's deep dive into your soul's growth, your soul's liberation, and the magic of conscious love together. If you're interested in joining the Embodied Relationship Council, click the link in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing your application come in. Peace and love, everybody.